doing, people? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be diving into how to make your very own Metahuman. This is going to be a really simple process. I'm going to take you through every step, what plugins you need to install, and by the end you should have a pretty cool cinematic photoreal character for you to animate as you please in your short films, video games, whatever it may be. So let's get into it. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the correct stuff installed on Unreal Engine. I am going to be using Unreal Engine 5.7.4, so I suggest you do the same, as it will make this process as simple as possible. When you install 5.7.4, you need to come here and make sure that in Options, you have Metahuman Creator Core Data installed. If you do not, you need to check it, download it, make sure that you have that installed, okay? That is very important. Once that's done, you can launch it, create your project, and then once we come into our project here, there's a few other plugins. So we come to Edit, Plugins, and here we're just going to type in Metahuman, and here we're basically going to install Metahuman Creator, which is currently in beta. I would recommend as well installing these, as you'll see in some future tutorials that I'm going to be releasing that shall show you how you can take that Metahuman and then animate them and bring them to life. So I'd recommend that you download those as well, but make sure that Metahuman Creator is installed. That is the one that you need. Once it's installed, you're gonna have to restart your project, but once it's restarted, you can then come back here. So we have our project here. Now I want to make a Metahuman. How do I do that? Well, I can come anywhere in my content browser. I just created one called Sandbox. I'm going to right click. I'm going to come to Metahuman. This is now new. This appears. And I'm going to come down to Metahuman Character. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to call it Tutorial Metahuman. But you can call it whatever you please. Just be aware that whatever you call it here is going to be naturally inherited as the name of your Metahuman when you assemble them. So we're going to double click on this and open this up. It might take a second depending on the power of your PC. It may take a little longer than usual. All right, so this is now loaded up and this is what we're greeted with at first. And you might be like, oh, hang on, this doesn't look like the stuff I saw in the showcase. This looks like some weird clay thing. Well, don't worry, we're going to start getting into that. So there's a few different ways that we can create a Metahuman. So we can either come to presets, and there's tons of presets. You can either just take one of these and just go, yep, that's what I want, or you can go in and you can just do it step by step. What we're going to do here, just so it's the most streamlined, is we're going to use a preset, but then we're going to go in and go through all the different tools that you can use to tweak that, and then you will have the information to make the decisions you want for the look that you want for your Metahuman. So let's just pick one near the top. I don't know, let's go with Bruce, why not? So we're going to double click on this guy. It's going to take a second. It's just going to apply that preset onto our character. There we go. We've got our preset right here, and as you can see, if I zoom in, the detail is insane. It's really, really good. What we can do as the first thing is we can come to body. And this is the power of the new Metahuman Creator, is that, well, first off, as you can see here, we can blend between different designs. So let's say I love everything about this guy's character. The one thing I don't like is I think his arms are too wide. Maybe I think that they look a little cartoonishly wide, right? For whatever reason. And let's say I like the arms proportions of this character. Well, I can drag and click them in here, and then I can come to these different parts and just slide it over. Do the same here. And boom. Now his arms are matching that. Now, obviously, there's other parts of his proportions now that aren't matching, but that's just to give you an idea of what you can do. Now, let's say you're like, nah, I don't want to use any of the presets. I want to get hands-on and do it myself. Well, that's what we've got here. We've got model. And here you have all of these sliders. And these sliders are what you can use to control all different aspects. So I can come in here, I can control thickness of his bicep, create something more like that. I can also reduce the forearms a little. Maybe I want his wrist as well to be a little more calm. Maybe I want his waist to be a little less extreme. You can go really crazy, but I mean, let's do something realistic here. And then I can control things like height. This is in centimeters, so it's really useful where perhaps you have actors in mocap suits and you want your Metahumans to be the same proportions as your actors. You can take measurements on set and then apply those measurements exactly in Metahuman Creator to make sure that the proportions all line up. So it's a really, really powerful and flexible new way to create Metahumans. So let's say I'm happy with this. You can also use conform, and this is where you can import a DNA file or a template of something that's been created. However, in 5.7, the body mesh that you are using has to have the same topology as any other metahuman body in order for it to work. However, in Unreal Engine 5.8, that is no longer an issue. You can use any mesh of any person, both for head and body, and you can conform it. It's really cool. I recommend checking out some of the new videos breaking it down. Very, very powerful stuff on the way for people using Metahuman. So now if we move on to the head here, we have the same stuff. We can control, we can blend stuff. So let's say that I like everything about this guy except his nose. No offense to the nose. And let's say maybe I don't want it to go all the way, but I don't want it to be this big and I want a happy middle. I can do something like that. And it's done. Maybe I want his eyes to be more like Cameron's. I can come in and maybe that's too much. So I want to find somewhere halfway. It's really cool. Now, one of the really powerful things is sculpt. And sculpt really starts to give us all of the power when it comes to customizing. So if I hide the grooms, I would recommend hiding the grooms and perhaps going into clay, because with the skin, it can sometimes be a little difficult to actually just look at the geometry for the sake of the geometry. At this point, we will just want to focus on that. So you can go into clay mode, you can maybe sink in the cheeks, move in the jaw, move in the ears. Maybe I want to move in the temples. Maybe I want to make his nose a bit up like this. Maybe I want him to have a bit more of a base at his back of his neck, different things like this. I can also transform. So I can come here and let's say that I think his ears are too big. I can come and select this uniform scale in transform, click on this, and a square will appear, and then I can control. I can make him massive, I can make him small, whatever I please. We've done blend. You can also do conform, and I'm going to go into more detail about how you can use conform and you can create a metahuman DNA using a 3D mesh and then conform your metahuman to that metahuman DNA. That is a video I am working on currently and will be coming out very soon. So subscribe so you can watch along for that video. We can also manipulate things. So let's say I want the eyes to be a little further apart and maybe a bit down. You can really push it to crazy things, and you couldn't do this in the old metahuman creator that was up on a Chrome or Internet Explorer tab. You can also control the scale of the head. So if you want to control the scale of the head, you come into transform and I can control how big the head is. So let's say that in proportion to the rest of his body, your head feels a bit small. You can just enter in a value like 1.1, or if it's too big, 0.9. Just be careful with this because it can be very easy to start to make a really terrifying character such as the one we have here. All right, so after that, we can come to materials. What we can do here is we can do some really cool stuff with skin tone. So we can make him really pasty, or we can go somewhere in between. Let's just go back to what it was before because I think it looks fine. We also then have all of these face texture indexes. So a great way to kind of sort through these is select and then just scroll until I find something that I like. You can go as crazy as you want. There's way more options as well here, which is really cool, like that one. We also have way more options for the skin on the body. So currently we're using index 6, which I think works quite well. Got some good vascular definition, which definitely helps with the realism. The more definition and details that the shadows can pick up on just helps push a character away from the uncanny valley. But you can pick any of these, whatever is most suitable for your character. So feel free to experiment. There's other things here such as freckles. We've also got accents and different things like that. We can apply makeup. We can do stuff with our eyes, with our teeth. And this is all stuff that was in the old Metahuman creator, so I'm not really going to dive into it here, but you get the idea that there's lots of stuff you can do here to customize a character. Then we can come to hair and clothing. This is really exciting because, well, first off, we have way more options in terms of hair, which is exciting. So we can pick anything we like. We're going to make him bald because why not? All right. I don't mind his beard. I don't mind his lashes. I want to give him let's give him a handlebar mustache. Why not? We've also got peach fuzz. Now, a bit of a heads up, peach fuzz is not automatically assigned. So if you don't use a preset, none of this stuff is automatically assigned. You're going to have to go in and apply all the grooms yourself. So make sure you go through if your character needs eyelashes, eyebrows, hair, facial hair, and peach fuzz. Make sure you go in and assign them. You just double click on the one that you want, and then you're good to go. And then the last thing here is clothing. Now, something you might realize is, well, there's no clothing, right? In the old version, there used to be a bunch of different options that you could select from, and those aren't here anymore. Why is that? Well, it's because metahumans now use something called parametric clothing. And what parametric clothing does is it shrink wraps to your character's proportions, because we're no longer just using 3 templates: skinny, overweight, muscular. That used to be the old templates. Now you can do whatever you want. You can really just be super custom with your metahuman's look. But what that means is that those traditional templates of those clothing aren't going to work. So the people at Unreal Engine had to come up with something else. And so they are now using parametric clothing. So the reason that I told you guys that you have to use 5.7 or above is because now Epic have released all of those clothings that we used to use on that old version of Metahuman Creator. They've now re-released them as parametric outfits, which means they can shrink wrap to our characters. And they're free, which is awesome. So thank you, Epic Games. So let's say for this character, I want to have some boots, and I want some cargo pants, and I want a t-shirt. And they're just going to import into my project, and then we can click, drag, and drop them onto our character before we assemble him. Okay, that took a little longer than usual, and also Unreal crashed, so I lost some of the customization that I did to our character, but that's okay, because the point of this tutorial is to just show you guys how all these different parts work. So let's come back now to our hair and clothing. Scroll down, we're going to come to this part here, and inside your fab folder, when you import anything from fab that is to do with metahumans, it should come into this metahuman folder, and what you want to find are these metahuman wardrobe assets. These are the ones that we want. So we wanted the boots, the tracksuits, and the t-shirt. Now that we have all our clothing, we're going to double click this one to get rid of it. Whoa, mate, put on some clothes, calm down now. And then we're just going to double click on our other assets. All right, so we've got our character now. He's got his clothes on. Let's say that I'm happy here, and I'm like, all right, this is everything I want. I want to be able to put this guy in my scene. I'm happy with the textures. I'm happy with the model. I'm happy with the size of him. That's great. All right, well, what do we have to do next? Well, now we have to assemble our metahuman. But if I come here to assemble, you'll see that it says character is not rigged. It needs to be rigged first. And there's 2 options up here. We've got create full rig. And what that's going to do is it's going to create an entire body rig and facial rig with all the blend shapes for facial capture. Or you can do a create joints only rig. And that is just going to be the body. So let's say that your character is wearing a gas mask or a helmet or something that is constantly going to be covering all aspects of the face. Really no point wasting extra memory creating an entire skeletal structure for the face if you're not going to be animating it. So for this example, because I am going to be doing some tutorials where we do some metahuman animator stuff, I'm going to create a full rig. So it's going to take a second. All right, there we go. Now we've got our full rig. So if I click play here, there you go. Character is now moving, and because we selected create full rig, if I come here and select face, we can see some test facial capture being applied to our character. You can also come here and change it from these templates. Maybe there's a specific animation you want to see on this character, so maybe we want like a run or something. I can come here and select a run and see it on my character, see if it's working. How's the clothing behaving? Nothing seems to be broken. Cool, awesome. This is good to go. Now I should be able to assemble. Oh wait, no, I can't, because it says character is missing textures. How do you do that? Well, you just come up to download texture. Right now it says it's going to download 2K. You can change this though, depending on what clarity you want on the skin, depending on how close you're going to be getting to your character. You can go all the way up to 8K, although I wouldn't really recommend going up to 8K because most short films are 4K at the most, so you're kind of just wasting space at that point. But we're just going to go with 2K because we're just doing a tutorial here. So I'm going to just click download. Usually quite quick. Obviously, if you're using 4K or 8K, it's going to be a little slower, but I digress. All right, that's all good to go. So now if I come here, there we go. Assemble is now green. We are ready to go. Here we can select our assembly. So I'm going to keep it on Unreal Engine Cinematic, and that means everything is going to be pushed as high res as it can. Granted, I've capped it at 2K, but things like the grooms, the clothing, the blend shapes are all going to be pushed to the highest level possible. Now, if you're doing it maybe for a video game, you might want to use something more like Unreal Engine optimized. I'm going to leave these settings as is. The root directory is going to be game-metahumans. You can obviously change this, doesn't matter. You can put it anywhere you want, whatever's best for your project. Now, once again, like I said at the beginning, it's inherited the name. It's got tutorial metahuman, but this gives you the option to rename it if you would like to. And then you just hit assemble, and then that's it. You're done, and you have your metahuman ready to go. I hope this was useful for you guys. If you would like to see more, please consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment of what kind of tutorials you would benefit from. I'm trying to put out more of these tutorials for you guys to benefit. 99% of what I learned about Unreal Engine was on YouTube, and so I just want to give back to the community with the things that I've learned and gathered through all the different videos I've watched. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, in a bit, lads.